allow me to start the meeting. So I call to order this meeting of the Borough Council Workshop meeting, December 4th, and we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We will start out this evening with citizens to be heard. I don't see anyone that's not already on our agenda. Stephanie? Okay, great. We are going to start out this evening with a presentation from the Downtown Carlisle Association, Stacy Gould. So I think your mic is already ready for you.
Hi everyone, it's me again. So it's hard to believe that I've been in this position for 2.5 years and so much has changed. So I just want to give you a little bit more of an update than what I had given you during the previous, I don't know what that was, meeting. um, this year, unfortunately, since the last time we talked, there have been 7 business closings in the downtown. Boutique on Pomfret, Glitz Soap Company, No Common Sense, Tawan Thai, The Vegetable Hunter, Grand Illusion, Sage Cafe, and we're about to lose 3 more. Inahara Yoga Studio is closing at the end of this year. Sunrise Cafe is closing after this weekend, and Yak and Yeti announced today that they were closing at the end of the month. However, on the bright side of things, we had 12 businesses open this year. So we welcomed Urban Artisan, who moved to a bigger location soon after coming to the downtown. Virgin Iris transferred here from Camp Hill. Sauced opened on North Street. Happy Go Creative, Pitt Street Station, Bourbon Cowgirl, Hungry Run Distillery, Kiki Beauty, the Crackpot Coffee Shop, 80 and Alley Branding Company, Serendipity Stitch, and the Plant Spot and Bejeweled just opened about 2 weeks ago. We also had Faye's Country Kitchen change ownership after celebrating their 50th anniversary. Sonella became Eco Oasis, and Wick and Pour Studio moved to a larger space in the downtown as well. And we're excited to have 2 more planned openings in a very near future, the much anticipated Cat Cafe, and also there will be a bakery going in on High Street. So we're very excited about that. We currently have about 40 retail businesses and 40 more restaurants and eateries in the downtown. So 80 businesses in a downtown the size of ours is pretty incredible. So for as many people that you hear might be having a little bit of struggle, there are just as many that report to us that they're having banner years. So it is positive, and even though there's some transition right now, it is encouraging to see this many more people wanting to come. And I still have other people on a list that can't find a space quite yet. So I'm not discouraged, and neither should anybody else be. I'm happy to report that our events for this year were all worked out pretty good. The Ice Art Fest featured more than 100 sculptures. The Ford and Corvette parades had great attendance. The welcome jam was rained out, but it still was a nice welcome to the community because we continue to do the scavenger hunt throughout the businesses and do some other things to partner with them to make sure that they feel included and welcome to the community. Our Harvest of the Arts featured 116 exhibitors this year. The Molly Pitcher Birthday Bash went off without a hitch. The holiday parade is happening tomorrow evening, and we have about the same number of entries as last year. And the Holly Jolly Jubilee and tree lighting ceremony will be happening on Saturday. We will be bringing back the Hachi New Year event on New Year's Eve. And we are looking forward to adding a couple additional events for in the new year. The retail promotions that we did this year included the Leap Day, the Downtown Peep Show, which we won an award for from the Pennsylvania Downtown Center. We got a Townie Award for our efforts. We did the second Saturday block parties. We did the Taylor Takeover Week, which had more attention on our website than any event that we've done in the history of ever. We did the Christmas in July promotion and our holiday open house with had a cookie contest and scavenger hunt. We had a tremendous amount of response to that, and there were 23 locations that you could go to for cookies throughout the downtown. So there were people in the streets, the businesses were full. It was a fantastic opportunity. And the same happened with Small Business Saturday. Many people reported having sales that were equivalent to a time before COVID, which is always great to hear. Newly additions for this year will include a holiday bingo. So we just released this today. There's going to be 3 cards that you can choose from. One will be for the retailers in the downtown, one will be for the restaurants, and the other one will be for the experiences that you can have downtown. This is the first time I've ever done something where you're encouraged to buy to participate, but the message of this is to remember to shop small and support local all season long. So it just gives the creative way that you can do that, and it gives you the opportunity to win Love Bucks as a prize to help support and continue to support the local merchants. We also will be doing a Nutcracker Stroll and Silent Auction. There are 44-foot tall nutcrackers that are about to be decorated by the downtown merchants, and that'll begin on December 13th and run through the end of the year. And the merchants will be decorating them, and then people have the opportunity to bid on them and can claim them as their own. And just a couple quick updates with the grant that we received from CADIC. We are working towards the High Street mural. We just had the design done from the original muralist that we're working on implementing. The community board is in process, which will go at the intersection of Courthouse Avenue and South Hanover Street. And then Susan and I are still talking about the crosswalk entry art that will go on the streets or nearby. And the town square planters have been done, and Pomfret Street got planters and azaleas this year. And then the tree well gardens will be done in the spring. Next, and finally, the only other thing I'd like to include is the process for designation. There are currently 800 Main Street programs in America. There are only 18 accredited programs in Pennsylvania and 5 additional affiliated programs. There are only 7 designated programs in the entire state. Um, but Governor Shapiro just announced the Main Street Matters $25 million initiative, which will implement $275,000 per designated Main Street program over the next 4 years. I am more than 60% complete with the application currently. One of the components was to do a perception survey. I was tasked with getting 500 responses to the perception survey. I'm happy to report that we already have 942. So very exciting to get that in place, and then we'll be hosting the town hall meetings to go over those results and to help me firm up my strategy for the next 5 years that goes along with the application. The resolution of support that's required is something that you'll be seeing soon from Susan. It's not anything new. It just shows that the council supports the Main Street program, and it will also show how we work together for projects like the connectivity project and also Vision Zero and those type of initiatives. Carlisle's transformation strategy is the focus on the college town aspect, as well as having a diverse and active nightlife that's filled with experiences and that hometown charm and historical nature. I brought a couple of our downtown guides that are over on the desk. If you don't have one, please pick it up so you can see all the cool things and all the new businesses and fun things to do. And please shop small and support local. Any questions for me?
I'm really interested in when that bakery is going to open. How do I stay abreast of what is opening? Sorry, excuse my voice, but
Mm-hmm.
what is opening? I was just like looking on your Instagram, and I was like, what I've found out.
Love Carlisle.
that opening on, or just on your website?
LoveCarlisle.com is the website. Love Carlisle PA is Instagram, and Love Carlisle is the Facebook. So we
Okay.
try to. I'm not as good as keeping up with Instagram, but Phil typically fills in for me with what I miss there.
Okay. Great. I will keep an eye out for that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anybody else have questions for me? No.
I just always love the like energy and spirit that you folks bring to the downtown because we're we have such a quirky array of wonderful businesses, and I think that you champion them so well with you and Phil, and just telling the story in the best possible way. So keep doing what you're doing,
Thank
and
you.
we'll help amplify as we can.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Stacy. Thank you. We both got stuck in traffic. Okay. Next up is the meeting minutes. Is there a motion to review and approve the November 6th, 2024 workshop meeting minutes?
So moved.
It's a motion by Councilor Mellon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to review and approve the November 6th, 2024 vacancy board meeting minutes?
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Mellon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. Next is budget and finance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 items this evening. First item, I make the motion that Borough Council consider a special event request by Benchfield Farms to utilize 3 parking spaces at the corner of South Hanover and West Church Avenue for purposes of downtown horse-drawn wagon and carriage rides, scheduled for December 6th, 13th, 14th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, 2024 from 5 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and December 7th, 2024 from 3 to 6 p.m. Approval shall be contingent upon the receipt of a valid certificate of insurance form naming the Borough of Carlisle as an additional insured and the applicant reimbursing the borough 100% of variable costs and 10% of fixed costs associated with this event.
Deputy Mayor makes a motion to approve the special event request by Benchfield Farms with the usual contingencies. I second that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
And I make the motion that Borough Council authorize the closure of parking spaces on Pomfret Street between Hanover Street and Pitt Street, excluding 3 spaces adjacent to 34 West Pomfret Street on Thursday, December 19th, 2024, between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. for the Carlisle Arts Learning Center Solstice Stroll. Approval shall be contingent upon the receipt of a valid certificate of insurance form naming the Borough of Carlisle as an additional insured and the applicant reimbursing the borough 100% of variable costs and 10% of the fixed costs associated with the event.
Deputy Mayor makes a motion to authorize the closure of parking spaces on Pomfret Street between Hanover Street and Pitt Street for the Carlisle Arts Learning Center Solstice Stroll with the usual contingencies. I'll second the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
And my last item, make the motion the Borough Council ratify the Borough Manager's approval for the temporary use of the West Chapel Avenue parking lot and portions of the Borough Hall parking lot by Earth Artisan and Outfitter for an event celebrating Earth Day scheduled for April 26, 2025. Approval shall be contingent upon the receipt of a valid certificate of insurance form naming the Borough of Carlisle as an additional insured.
Deputy Mayor makes a motion to ratify the Borough Manager's approval for the temporary use of West Chapel Avenue parking lot, portion of the Borough Hall parking lot by Earth Artisan and Outfitter for an event celebrating Earth Day. So it's their 3rd or 4th, I think, annual event with contingencies. I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
And that completes my report.
Thank you. Next up is our co-responder program update. Lorraine, if you want to come on up to the program.
So before Lorraine gets started, I just have a couple things to go over as well. I'll sort of start out the um, the program summary. I'll talk a little bit about where we're at now here at the end of 2024, and then I'll turn it over to Lorraine so she can share some examples of her work with the community, and then she'll go into our vision for 2025. So for the program overview, I just want to briefly set the stage for the purpose of the program and how it fits into the existing systems that are in place. So first, we wanted to share some statistics from the National Alliance on Mental Illness to highlight that mental illness is a national concern affecting millions of people. Note that only about half of the people who need treatment actually receive treatment. And some of the reasons why are listed on the next slide. Insurance, money, lack of transportation. They're not aware of resources. They're unwilling to seek treatment, fear, stigma. So this is sort of the space where the co-responder program occupies. On the next slide, you can see, yes, we are fortunate that we have many resources available right here in the borough, but we have to make sure that people are getting connected to them despite all of those barriers from the previous slide. So to do that, we have to literally meet people where they are. The co-responder is the boots on the ground to help individuals get the help they need. So for 2024, where are we now? Lorraine was hired March 25th, 2024. She immediately started building the program. She had 10 referrals within the first month and started building a network and compiling a list of resources. And then over the next few months, the program quickly started to take shape as she and the committee worked together to fine-tune the procedures, protocols, and data needs. And then in the June-October timeframe, throughout the summer and fall, Lorraine attended public outreach events to bring visibility to the program as a resource for the community. And she has continued to network and attend training whenever possible to hone her skills. And she, of course, was doing all of this while her referrals continued to grow. This year, we also applied for and were awarded a PCCD grant to cover the program costs in 2025 and 2026. And as of November, Lorraine had 140 individuals referred to the program. So now I'm going to turn it over to our co-responder, Lorraine, so she can spend a few minutes discussing her work in the community.
Good evening, everyone. As she mentioned, it's specifically with the boots on the ground, meeting them where they are is one of the most important things. And that's essentially where the gap I'm attempting to fill in. Some of the individuals, it could simply be one follow up, and some it could simply be answering some of their questions, letting them vent, letting them talk. And I could still be working with them. I'm still working with some of the individuals that were referred to me back in March. Just still connecting to resources, still checking in on them. Just had Thanksgiving. I spent time just checking in on some of the individuals that I knew it would benefit them, just if they don't have family and stuff. So, and as far as the resources go, I don't simply just say, hey, here's the food bank, make sure you call them. I call with them. I go with them. I meet them there. I make sure they're comfortable when they're in there in the space, and they leave there and they understand what to do next time, just so they know when they get there what to do, where it's at. Make sure they have an appointment before they leave, and I walk with them through it. Take them to the appointments. If I can't physically get them the transportation, I meet them there. I make sure that they show up. I make sure that remind them that it's coming up. Some of the lack thereof was the family, the support, the priorities that they had. So I try to walk in their shoes. These individuals in crisis need help now. They don't need to be put on the waiting list, and I can't solve the waiting list. I can't, be the end all be all, but I try to, find some other things that I can assist with in the meantime. And it's not just another unhoused individual the call is in relation to. It's meeting them where they are, not minimizing their concerns, doing the best I can possibly, and wherever they're at, they don't come to the appointments for a reason. She discussed stigma or being caught with someone else catching them in that interview room or whatever, so they just kind of avoid it completely. two specific examples I just wanted to discuss. When working with these individuals, I have examples, original referrals, possible mental health concern that came in. This individual had 12 911 calls, 3 times in one day, one specific day. Since August, they have not had any police interaction or 911 call since. The complaints were all related to some issues, potential spraying chemicals in the residence, house being bugged, drilling holes in the roof. I attempted many remedies, assisted with some security ideas with this individual. Codes helped me checking in and around the house for any manipulation with the outlets and the holes, just to ensure security with her, utilizing all the resources possible. Connected to a health provider reporting the chemicals are affecting her health. Also connected her to the Todd Bear Living Foundation. They funded, it's a nonprofit organization. They put flooring in her house. She was on plywood floors. She's helped connect her with her family. And since then, this individual is mentally, physically way better off. I still touch base with her weekly, and I'm still working with this individual, and I feel like it's a pretty good success story. Another one was a welfare check on a veteran suffering from depression, recent divorce after 39 years, not answering calls, following up with the VA for appointments. The mail was returning to sender, so they called the police for a welfare check. Luckily, the 2 officers that went with me were veterans. They were able to connect right away with this individual, and I assisted with the local food bank, the military share once a month. Definitely pleased with that. The LIHEAP application, I sat with him and helped him fill it out. Transported to the VA appointments to make sure he participated in them so that he can be on the list for the future benefits that he is entitled to and qualifies for. And very excited about that. And I collaborated with the VA workers with the individual's permission to accomplish all these goals. So one of the barriers is, the release of their personal information with the providers and stuff. And that individual has to be willing to do so. And once they do that, the collaboration then opens up that and we work together and takes a team for some of these individuals. And no disservice to the mental health providers and all the agencies, but sometimes the hospitals don't have the time or the staff to follow up and call and make sure that they're managing their medications or they're going to their next appointment that they scheduled for them and stuff. So it's just important that I have the opportunity to go in their house, sit down with them, and just have that conversation, see what's next, what's upcoming, and help them get there and figure it out. So thank you guys all for supporting the program, seeing the value in this program, and everything that has come along with it. All right. Any questions?
Are there any questions? I get to once in a while jump in on the meetings that we have on the co-responder program. We chatted a little bit about the walk-in crisis center.
Yes.
It's a collaborative effort among the adjacent counties that just opened up yet. Was it yesterday?
So yesterday, yes. Today, the mobile crisis, they just initiated the mobile crisis portion of it. On the 11th, the adult walk-in clinic will be available to Perry, Cumberland, and Dauphin County. And then the beginning of January, then they'll do the juvenile. They'll open up the juvenile side of it for the walk-in clinic. They'll have 16 chairs available for the adult and 8 chairs available for the juvenile side of it from ages 14 to 17. They never divert, they never turn anyone away, and it's a 24-hour service. Within the first 35 minutes, they see a provider, a health provider, or a nurse of some sort. So I think next week is when they'll start taking patients. I think right now they just started the mobile crisis portion of it to kind of navigate the area. So.
Yeah, and Lorraine was right on top of that. You attended the tour there and
I
sort of
toured there.
figuring out how to make that all work from this distance and transportation and all the other things that go along with it. So
Absolutely. Just like with anything, I want to be able to say, like, this is when you get there, this is, if I haven't seen the place, it's a little bit harder for me to describe, but walking and touring it, touring the facilities of, treatment places that I send people, I can say, like, I was there. I know, kind of what to expect for them so that they feel a little bit more comfortable knowing what the next steps are that they're about to commit to. So just like the officers, I'm able to say, like, this is what the facility looks like, this is what they're to expect when they get there, and have a little bit more answers for them if they have any.
yeah, thanks again, Lori.
Of course.
Anything else?
I have a couple of questions. Some might be for you, and might just be for like the administration in general. One, the story, kind of a case study that you talked about, how the one person didn't call 911. Since you've been referred and working with them. And I'm just wondering how we can capture that information in a quantified manner and make sure that we can sort of tell that story across the board outside of just like you verbally telling the story, because I think that that's definitely a crucial part of why this position was so important, to try to really see folks that are using the only resources they have available, which is 911, and then and then going to the police when there's other opportunities to do intervention. So you don't have to have an answer for that right now in general.
Okay. No, but I know
You
where
have
your
an
head's
answer,
I
right?
know where your head's going. Yeah, I see.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the other thing, I mean, I've been waiting for you to come talk, because I've been really wanting to know like how it's been going. I mean, I hear the numbers like 140 referrals, but I really am trying to, because this is a brand new position, and I know that you folks work so hard to plan out the position and talk to other municipalities that have done this work. But and again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you can tell me later if you think of things. But I like to know, now that you're here and you're working and you're really seeing what it's like. I always like to know, like, if you had a magic wand, like what else would be best for this community, or what can we do to advocate at upper levels for things that are, you said about barriers, things like that, but also, things that we can do here. I know that, is there a part-time position that's still, so that, there's still some other stuff coming, but I do like to, I can't grant all the wishes, but I like to know what, like, I don't know, I like create, crazy ideas that make sense, and so I think asking folks like you that are making this job happen on your feet, learning as you go along, I think it's crucial to also just be like, what else can we do to support you, and then obviously support the rest of the community in the process.
Absolutely. And you individuals are out there sometimes more than I can be, and the mayor has sent me a referral. You interact with someone and you see like they may need some resources that I may not know of. That's an example right there. Would be, email me, call me, let me know what the situation is, and I'll get in touch with them within the next 24 hours, business day of some sort. But absolutely, that would, or any resources that you come across that would be beneficial to me as well. So I mean, when you think you've got them all, there's still so many more out there.
And one of those barriers, I know, and you talked about, in a couple of cases, is transportation and folks just being able to get places, including the one you didn't talk about tonight, where a woman needed to get to Sadler, and it was going to require some sedation, and she couldn't use Uber because they won't allow that. So trying to find transportation options for folks would be huge. And I know I dealt with that in the years I represented folks in juvenile dependency work, and I just see the overlaps there, that people who are struggling don't have transportation options really need
Yeah,
that.
I know. Like you have Rapid Transit, you have Uber, and then it's like, well, Uber can't. It's you only have so many options, which is then you're at a challenge and you just throw your hands up. So that is a great example.
Yeah, that's somewhere we can have influence on. We already want to have some influence on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those are the kinds of things, like, we're talking to you about the work that you do, but if we helped support transit options, it would help your folks and it would help so many other people. So, like, I always think of like the little kids and the elderly, like how do they navigate, especially, not little kids, but even like kids that don't have a car, like how, if you can help people navigate the folks that aren't able to drive, it can help a whole bunch of different groups. And so outside of just transit, sort of thinking of like something we could do that supports your folks, but then it's like the automatic doors at grocery stores, right? They help us. They're really crucial for some people, but they're also just convenient, right? So there's like things like that it can improve like the quality of the whole community by these initiatives that help someone immensely, but also are kind of helpful for the rest. So thinking of things like that, feel free to bring to us.
I don't have a question. I just want to say I'm really pleased that we have this program now, and thank you for your presentation, both of you, for letting us know what's going on with it. Wow, uh, it's troublesome to see how many people are struggling. It's also really great to know that those people have someone who is there and that the borough is invested in making sure that our residents are okay. I do have one question, so I was wrong. I lied.
Mhm.
Are you taking care of yourself? Because I know that this can be something heavy, and I'm sure that there's days you probably take some of it home with you. But are you making sure to take care of yourself?
I am, yes. Thank
We talked about that. We just talked about that,
At
just
the
in our
council.
last meeting this week, and we talked about that in the interview, and yeah, so that's something I know you're very attentive to that
Yes,
self care, and
self-care.
I know Amy and everybody else keeps in touch
On top
because
of
that can
it.
be an emotional work. Yeah, yeah.
I'm on top of it. Yes, I do. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you, Lorraine. Appreciate it. Thank you, Amy, for the update. Chief and Borough Manager Armstrong, thanks for the continued support of the program. Next up, Mr. Woolston, an update on land use reform.
Oh, it can be in person.
In stereo.
So, one of my roles for the Department of Sustainable Community and Economic Planning for the borough is to oversee the Land Use Reform Subcommittee that Council formed in January 2023. And this is just a presentation of the work that we've done in 2024 and what we hope to do or anticipate doing in 2025. So, I don't expect you to read this, but it basically is a depiction of the planning process, and you can see it's a circle. If anybody's watching this thinking, well, I'll take the AICP exam, you better know this diagram. But for you guys, you just need to know that it's circular. You go through the planning process and you always sort of return to the plan. You find out what's working, what's not working, and you make adjustments. That's the planning process in a nutshell. And you never fall in love with your plan. Once it's done, it's not really done. You always have to go back and try to fix it up. What we do with the Land Use Reform Subcommittee, for the most part, is incremental reforms. We try to make better connections between the adopted policy documents. The principal planning document that we sort of always use for foundational planning is the comprehensive plan. But we also look at other things like the climate action plan, the truth and reconciliation goals, and some other things. So as I go through this, at least you'll have an understanding of what we're trying to do. The land use reform concerns, at least the things that we think about most frequently at our meetings, and the things that sort of generate recommendations that come to Borough Council are highlighted here. Now, my staff didn't like this picture because it's not very organic and it doesn't really show community, but I took a stab at it. Anyway, first and foremost, regulations, just in an economic sense, add a little bit of resistance to markets. That's what they do. In a land use context, when we add regulations that make it tough to do business, make it tough to do things that people want to do with their property, that can be a little bit of a challenge, especially for a local market, a local community. In Carlisle, we're pretty well built out, except for some of these gigantic underutilized parking lots, and that was something that we always kind of reflect on. Nobody's in these spaces. These could be used for infill. And we say infill, it literally means building something in an underutilized space. So where there's a big parking lot, maybe it could be a building, maybe it could be generating some revenue or some interest for the community. We also look at some of our suburban type code requirements in the zoning ordinance and reflect on some of council's other objectives like climate action, some of the Vision Zero objectives that we're trying to realize. And so if there's opportunities to adjust things in the code to realize active transportation and micromobility, like bicycle use and things like that, then we go ahead and make those recommendations. Climate adaptation, that's a gap in the cap. So the climate action plan doesn't really get at adapting to conditions that are of a global nature. It really focuses on CO2 reduction, greenhouse gas emissions, things like that. So where we can have some influence on shade or something like that, adapting to flood conditions, things like this, we'll make that recommendation. We also look at neighborhood social connections and independence. So if you're stuck with consolidated districts that have single uses and you have to travel a long ways to get to those places, if you're going to parts of the borough that are just not that interesting, then you're obviously not meeting with your friends and family in those places. And with particular attention to some of the slides that will follow, these neighborhood connections and what's sort of offered within your neighborhood. Land use policy contradictions. So when the plan, the comprehensive plan, or any of these other plans that envision what council and the community want are different than what's in the land use regulations, this is an opportunity for reform. It's a low-hanging fruit. And the last piece is that regulatory review as part of the planning process, that circle thing again. Well, this got all kinds of messed up. Amateur hour. Okay, so in 2024, council received a couple of draft recommendations and acted on them. You've heard all these things before, but for the benefit of the public, hopefully they're not looking at the slide, but they're just listening to me. Council adopted an increased distance from 300 feet to 1,500 feet for shared use parking. And we went through a fancy mapping exercise to make sure that was contextually appropriate in certain districts. And we added a fee in lieu of parking. So if you're short one or two required off-street parking spaces, you have the benefit as an applicant to come to council, make a case to pay a fee in lieu of parking. Geez, I hope they're all messed up. Well, it is what it is. What we were trying to do here, or at least what I was trying to do here, is show a couple of things that we've done. We've analyzed accessory dwelling units from a dimensional perspective. So we looked at existing lots in the borough. We considered a 35% finished floor area allowance to establish a subordinate dwelling unit. And if you had sort of a modest existing principal building, and that 35% just really didn't get you a very big apartment, we looked at a minimum standard of 750 square feet. And that seemed to check out for all the different properties that we looked at. On the right-hand side of this slide, you see some black and white depictions of funny-looking polygons. Those are actually footprints from existing buildings, existing lots, and we were measuring some of the dimensional requirements against this standard just to see if it worked, and for the most part it worked. We came up with an urban transect, if anybody's familiar with form-based code. It was a sort of a context-based stab at a carriage house design requirement. So we started with a transect adjacent to alleys. So if you did an outbuilding adjacent to an alley, the typical form in the urban parts of the borough is to have a small outbuilding directly adjacent to an alley. And the thought was to, turn those into apartments that were not, in the future looking like a garage. That they'd have windows and they'd have things that made it look like a home. And we did some research on some other approaches to ADUs. There's still a lot of work to do on this. Just because we have the context set and an idea of how we want these physically built, we still have to come up with a design guide or a design code for the carriage house ADUs. We need to decide how we're going to deal with trash collection, how we're going to hook up to public and water and sewer and things like this. And the licensing recommendation that we've talked about so often for short-term rentals needs to be finalized and brought to council. I'm dreading the next slide. Yep, there it is. I don't think I like that font. I'll remember that. We looked at a text amendment for a couple of things, and that was done for artisan manufacturing. So this would be to allow manufacturing uses at a small scale, less than 10,000 square feet, fewer than 10 people, occupying spaces at least within the C1 district and probably in other places that allow commercial uses. We did a draft text amendment for minimum bicycle parking. The only thing left to do is give it to the solicitor and bring it to council. We've done a fair amount of outreach, and this is going to be a real bummer because I can't remember the to-do list. You just can't see it. What you see on the right here is a fancy map that Deb Sinna on my staff put together. And basically, it's a part of the borough that Councilor Safrania Perry has invited neighbors to come along and look at with a memory of the past. So the people that still recall small commercial uses, different meeting spaces, things that used to be in this part of the borough, were able to give us some notes. And staff attended a walking tour, and we've started to come up with a map inventory of those places. We're going to continue to do that neighborhood review in this part of the borough, and maybe some places farther to the east that have a similar physical character and sort of offer the same types of spaces. We've done a fair amount of outreach with different entities. The deputy mayor and I participated in a Strong Towns interview, so we've been published. We've got the Sustainable Community and Economic Planning webpage is routinely updated with land use reform things. The mayor attended the Mayor's Institute for Pedestrian Safety, which was a competitive process, and it was able to talk about some of our land use reform things and the connection to safe streets. And the staff and our policy leaders have also participated in some outreach with the Department of Community and Economic Development, which seems to have paid dividends because we're on the receiving end of some grant money for planning, which is very nice. And we've done some outreach with Shippensburg University and our friends at the Pennsylvania State Historic Preservation Organization in the county to talk about historic preservation and again tie it back to land use reform. It always seems to come back to that. On the to-do list, I wish I could tell you.
It's just neighborhood mixed use review and recommendation north of C1.
Well, that's a relief. All right.
So you had half of it there.
Next.
And if it helps, I've been seeing this like all over when people are doing PowerPoint. It's like
Really?
things are getting squeezed out, and yeah, I'm not sure if it's some update to PowerPoint or what's going on.
Find on my computer upstairs.
Yeah. So it's not your fault. It's Bill Gates' fault.
I'm happy for that. Okay. So that's so weird. I'm looking at it, just looks totally fine on mine. Well, never mind. Funding awards and some future initiatives. So those funding awards that I alluded to before, we were on the receiving end of a $50,000 grant to help us with our partial match for the municipal assistance program grant. Again, another grant we're going to receive for planning, about $100,000 for that. So this all ties into the land use reform work that we've talked so much about. Again, this goes a little bit beyond incremental zoning reforms, and it really digs into comprehensive planning in parts of the borough that we've already sort of evaluated, and we don't have a lot to go on in terms of what's in the existing comp plan. I did want to mention that on the to-do list for the planning process, I've highlighted the two small area plans that we got grant funding for. One's at the very end of North Hanover, our little gateway to the borough on North Hanover, and the other one's that second sort of bottom right picture is East High Street at the borough line. And what I wanted to mention here is that we're going to initiate that small area planning process now that we have the funds to do it. So we'll get some consultants to help us out. And one thing that staff have been tracking is potential for mixed use zoning at that Carlisle Plaza. Now, if you look at the picture that's just to the left of that orange blob, the orange polygon, that's from our land use plan in the comprehensive plan. So the future land use plan shows this area, the plaza, as C2 shopping center / mixed use, and that's what was adopted in our zoning ordinance. But now we have a new tool for mixed use zoning that was suitable for the piece of land across the street, the old Frog Switch manufacturing parcel, and it's got some potential for that plaza as well. Staff haven't developed a final recommendation for it, but we're hoping to add that to the planning process. Questions? Not about PowerPoint, please.
Any questions? Looks good on our computers too, on the laptops. So, any questions? Yours look like that too. All right. It's a
I
mixed
don't
bag.
care that PowerPoint didn't work. I have a new favorite slide, and that is the incremental planning process never followed. Like, it is my favorite.
The circle of planning.
That's correct. So you brought something beautiful.
That was Elton John's original title.
It's still my favorite meeting that I go to, so I enjoy the Friday morning. And if people ever think that we don't do our due diligence, and I'm not talking to you, I'm talking about Jared, but we do all like grapple on like little polygons of like bringing little houses and snapping pictures, and it's a ridiculous kind of process sometimes, but it's well vetted. That's what I can say. So we do our due diligence to make sure that it's for the best of Carlisle.
Yeah, the folks at the Mayor's Innovation Project and a bunch of the mayors involved were really intrigued by what we're doing with this process, and thought, I mean, it seems like a simple idea, just get together and let's talk about these issues, and but it was like astonishingly new to all these mayors across the country that anybody might do something like this. So,
well, I have to say also that I presented at the State of Carlisle breakfast a couple weeks ago, and the topic was on the housing crisis in Carlisle. But there was sort of general discussion and questions afterwards, and I was able to put a plug in for our land use reform that we were working on. And Kirk Stoner agreed that everyone in the county should be working on this type of thing as well. So we're leading the way here.
thanks, Jared.
Good job.
Despite your fonts and your PowerPoint. I liked the picture too. I thought it was great. There's no new business. Is there any public comment? We don't have anybody hanging out on Zoom, I imagine. Okay. All right. Then there being nothing further, I have a fire police officer to go swear in, and we are adjourned.